Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 2021 committee meeting of the James Manor Area School District. Call this meeting to order, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Darren Johnston.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. If you would just follow with me in the agenda, we'll go right through it. We do have some things in executive session, so we're probably going to spend just as much time in executive session as we will in the open session, to be honest. Moving along, nothing in the first couple items. If we move right to program presentations, just want to share with you and anyone else that is listening this evening. We are going to be recognizing our veterans again this Veterans Day on November 10th. What we have planned is an assembly that our students will be in, but that will be distributed out live. We'll also record it so that individuals can listen to it later in the evening, but we will be doing that at 1 o'clock on November 10th. Prior to that, we've asked and are distributing meals. So we are going to be taking meals down to the senior center. 33 individuals are registered for lunch there, so we'll get meals to them. And then we have another 36 to 40 individuals that will be picking meals up at the front of the high school on November 10th. And so students will be distributing those meals out front along with the band playing, similar to what we did last year, driving through the circle and recognizing our veterans. So that'll all take place next Wednesday. Moving along to 3B. I indicated last month that we're going to ask an administrator each month to talk about the responsibilities within their job. Mr. Gramling went first, and Mrs. Dolges has volunteered to go this month. So, Mrs. Dolges, all yours.
If I would have known this week was like it was, I wouldn't have volunteered to go second. This has been a very trying week in my world. Mr. Gramling has my PowerPoint, and I'm just going to talk about some of the things that I do in my position. One of the largest duties that I have is scheduling. So see, this good thing I'm not the tech guy. Go ahead, you can go to the next slide. So scheduling is one of the largest things that I have to do. This usually occupies most of a lot in the spring, but most of my summer break. Mr. Rainey, as you probably deal with it as well. It starts out, I update the course description book. I send it out to the teachers. We do all the updates for it. I get it posted on the website so that when we open the scheduling portal, students can look at course descriptions. I review all the student scheduling forms for each grade level. I make sure that what goes in on Sapphire, I sit with Mr. Uhas. We check to make sure every grade level is correct. In the system, you can code certain classes to be available to certain grade levels, and we go through that every year to make sure it's accurate. I organize, I have the teachers do all their course recommendations in Sapphire. So if you are in English 9, the teachers will do their recommendations right through Sapphire. They can recommend a student to honors English, to academic English, to general English, and all the core content teachers do all the teacher recommendations. I organize the student scheduling in Sapphire. So we usually take about a 2-week window and we open the portal, and students at that time can get in, they can look at their courses. And the way the portal works, it's very neat that when the kids get in, the recommendations, they can't change. So if a teacher recommends, the teachers will actually meet with the students ahead of time. Let's say you're in biology. Well, the following year, do you want to go to chemistry? Do you want to go to bio 2? Do you want to go to ecology? Do you want to go to physical science? So the teachers have that discussion with the students and then do their course recommendations. So then when the students go into their portal, everything is in there and they just select their electives, select languages, select courses like that. Then once it is completed, I go through and we make sure, along with the guidance counselors, that every student completed a scheduling request. We will all pull students and sit with them and make sure that all the requests are in. And then once all the requests are in, I look at all of the requests for a course. For example, I might have a course that has 45 requests. I sit down and I try to figure out how many sections of that course I would need. So a class with 45, I would break into 2 sections so that teacher, and then as I'm going through the scheduling process, I would try to balance out those courses. On the next slide, I build the master schedule all summer. So it takes me several, I can have several trials at it. I can have different potential schedules. Usually I have 3 or 4 potential schedules and I keep manipulating them through the summer to try to find which combination I can get the most students. So for this year, and everything is built individually. So this school year, just to make our student schedule go, I have 567 sections of courses. I have 117 sections of study hall built. So I build, I build it that I have a Monday, first period, semester 1, Tuesday, first period, semester 1, Wednesday, first period, semester 1. I do that for every period. Then I'll go back and I'll build a Monday, first period, semester 2, Tuesday, first period, semester 2. Have learned this through the years. I used to build it Monday through Friday, but we have different combinations of courses, such as some students that have a chemistry lab might have chem lab 2 days a week, and then a study hall opposite those 2 days, and then or a phys ed opposite those, and then a 1-day study hall. Well, when I built it 5 days a week, when I ran the scheduler, if it didn't fit perfectly, it didn't fill their schedule. So I've learned over the years that I have to build 117 sections of study hall. I usually start with 100, and then I have to add things on when I have different teachers available. Once that is finished and I adopt the master schedule, then I work with the guidance counselors to review student schedules, make all the adjustments. I work with the special ed department. They come in, they go through all the student schedules to make sure their schedules match their IEPs, and I will sit with them and we'll make adjustments to the student schedule. Another part of something I do is a lot of it is testing. So PSSAs and Keystone testing. I help create the testing schedule. I arrange coverage for all the testing. So if we're to have multiple teachers proctoring the tests, I make sure that their classes that are not being tested have to be covered. For example, like Mrs. Talmadge teaches 7th grade math. If she's proctoring the test, I have to make sure her prob and stats class, her trig class, and her calculus class are covered. So I have to go through that. I make sure everything is covered. I have to create a spreadsheet for all the tests. You have to have a spreadsheet should an auditor show up. That spreadsheet has to show the test, the date, the room, the student name, the state ID, and who was proctoring the test each period. You have to have that spreadsheet ready if a monitor would show up. I have to make sure all the test security sheets are signed for the testing. We also here administer the NOCTI test in our ag program. So just to do the NOCTI test, I get all of the student objective sheets, and Mr. Hughes makes sure those are signed and completed by every student. Once I get those back, I sit with Mr. Uhas. Mr. Uhas and I go through and we put them onto a calendar. And that is, so our ICTC students are on a calendar, the ag students are on a calendar, and all the other students then are on a separate calendar. We go through all those, like if a student's on an ICTC calendar, they cannot be on the ag calendar. So I go through all the objective sheets to make sure those are correct. And I sit with Mr. Uhas and we get the calendars updated. I order all the pre-tests. I order all the study guides. I schedule and proctor the online test. I schedule the practical test for Mr. Hughes. Once those students complete the practical test, I sit and I enter every answer from their practical test into the client service center. Get all the scores uploaded, and then I have to order all the certificates for the students. Some of the meetings I attend, I have monthly department chair meetings, monthly faculty meetings. I attend monthly meetings virtually with Alpha. We have a student at the Alpha program up at the Guidance Center. I do 45-day review meetings with Ignite. Ignite, if you remember, is our classroom that we house at Admiral Perry. It is a dropout prevention program. And it is, we have a number of students in there and they do credit recovery. I attend monthly curriculum council meetings, monthly Indiana County principals meetings, heritage conference meetings. Weekly SAP meetings, and at the beginning of the year, I hold grade level meetings with each grade level to review things like the student handbook. We go over discipline, attendance, dress code. We do meetings to hold to discuss ALICE drills. We do safe to say. One thing I didn't add on there is this year at the high school, we started doing MTSS meetings. I attend those with Mr. Grimaldi. We generally, before MTSS, would just hold parent meetings when students were struggling. Some other activities, things that I do, I try to attend as many banquets as I can every year. Some of the ones I usually attend are football, basketball, band, FFA, cheerleading. I help chaperone the prom. I chaperone other dances if needed. I help organize all the assemblies, the PEP assemblies, Veterans Day, Christmas, Halloween parade. We do sixth grade orientation at the high school, the guidance counselor, Mr. Grimaldi, and myself. Mr. Grimaldi does a lot of the organizing of the transition day, but together he and I run the transition day. I attend ICTC graduations every year. I attend all the back to school nights, parent teacher conferences. I sit in on some parent teacher conferences. We do the senior awards banquet, National Honor Society induction. Every year I have to update all the forms on the website, such as the driving forms, the long-term PTR forms. I update the tutoring forms, all those different forms that are on the high school website. I update the teacher handbook and the student handbook every year. Graduation, I assist in organizing baccalaureate. I run the graduation practices. I do senior award banquets. I plan and organize the whole graduation ceremony. I work with the senior advisors for everything there. Some of my daily duties include assigning subs, sending coverage emails every day. I send the rosters out and I send a coverage email so the teachers all know everywhere students should be. I send a daily email to staff when I can get to it in the morning if my mornings aren't too crazy. I cover classes when there's no subs available. For example, tomorrow I will have 10 teachers out of the building and I have 3 substitutes. So I will be helping cover classes. I will be recruiting anybody who is not busy tomorrow to help cover classes. I complete teacher observations, walkthroughs, I manage curriculum, plan and organize in-service activities. I oversee all athletics. I manage the high school budget, manage student activity accounts, approve all purchases at the high school. I approve facility requests for the high school. I approve the field trips, the workshop conferences. Something new this year is called Pathway to Graduation. There are 5 different pathways that a student can meet in order to meet the requirements for graduation. It's starting with this year's 11th grade. So if a student can be proficient on all their Keystone exams, that's one pathway. If they're proficient on one, basic on the others, and have a set composite score, that's another pathway. If they're in a CTE program such as ICTC or AG program, that's another pathway. There's 2 other pathways that include, there's a variety of different ways where they can meet that pathway. One of them includes different tests such as SATs, ACTs, ASVAB assessments. And then there's 5 different pathways. And this is something new for us. I'm working with Mr. Uhas. We have to track every student and report what pathway they met for graduation. Where it'll get a little difficult is if we have a student at ICTC and we say, okay, he's in the CTE bucket for graduation, and then for some reason they come out of ICTC, they don't want to go, or we have to pull them back due to grades, then we have to track that student to make sure we remove them from that bucket and find a new bucket for them to fall into. So Pathway to Graduation right now is something that I've been working when I can with Mr. Uhas. It is going to be quite taxing, but something else we have to do. And on top of all that, I handle all the discipline. So just today alone, I had 2 discipline situations that monopolized my entire day. I had one monopolized all morning, and then I went to my admin meeting, and then I came back and there was an issue. I covered a class, and then there was an issue in lunch that monopolized the rest of my afternoon. So today, none of the other things got handled. I worked on that. I actually finished this PowerPoint about half hour ago at my dinner table while I was feeding my daughter. So it was that kind of a week. That's why I said if I would have known this week was going to be like this, I wouldn't have volunteered to go first. So anyway, that's just in a brief snip of some of the activities that I do as a high school principal. Any questions?
Michelle,
Thank you,
I
Mrs.
can
Doge.
speak from experience. Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes,
me? Yeah. So basically, how often do you have to spend time in the evening because of the multiple duties that you alone hold? So how many times are you, even though you might be home, are you on your email doing business of the school?
I am constantly on my email. I probably get, I'm guessing at least 150 emails a day. So like one day when I'm occupied with behavior situations, if I am not looking at my email, then the next day I have those 150 from the day before plus a new 100 and some emails. So my email is synced to my phone. I am constantly on there answering emails, replying to emails, sending emails out. There are times that it's been midnight and I'm laying in bed thinking of things and I thought, oh, I forgot to email that person. I'll get up, grab my phone, send an email. It's all the time. I do subs a lot in the evenings. I take stuff home, and like tomorrow, I already have kind of a skeleton plan of how I'm going to try to cover things. I'm not even near done. So this evening when I get home, I will be sitting trying to figure out all the subs for tomorrow. Because I have by 7:25, I have to know what's happening. So it's a busy mornings.
And I know each school does it different. How many observations are required for teachers a year?
We have one for every teacher. If you're not tenured, there's two.
Okay.
And Mr. Grimaldi helps with some of the high school observations. He does some in the elementary and some in the high school. So that helps, that it separates it and I don't have all 38 of them to do in high school.
Other questions from Mrs. Dolges? Thank you, Mrs. Dolges.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, under negotiations, we have nothing this evening. Under curriculum, we have nothing this evening. And then under budget and finance, we will ask for you to approve a motion next Thursday to amend our PAE-TEP agreement. And you have a handout, 6A, for that. And what we're doing is all of the evaluations of our teachers are on PAE-TEP. We have 15 instructional assistants that what we're wanting to do by signing this agreement, or you giving us the permission to do this, is allowing us to put our evaluation model for all of our instructional assistants online so that we can go complete the evaluation. Also allows the instructional assistant to participate online along with whoever's doing the evaluation. We've come up with a format. So PAE-TEP did not have this evaluation system. So we've designed that, asked them to implement it into the system. So at the cost that's there of $3,294, that would be creating the new module, and then also then loading and using for 15 support staff members the evaluation system that we'll continuously use year to year. Any questions on that?
Puts about $1,100 a year, since this is what, a 3-year
Right.
agreement?
Correct. Yes. Other questions? Okay. Mr. Larch had asked me a question in regards to grants leading up to all the funding that has come in. If you would take a look at the long spreadsheet, and Mr. Rainey and Mr. Flennick, about an hour ago, I sent you an email. I apologize. It just dawned on me that you wouldn't have this in front of you tonight, but it is in an email to you. So if you take a look, Nicole actually has this in an order of how we received. So if you take a look on the left, you'll say, well, wow, what's all those names there for? Because that's the different stages in which we received funding. So everywhere from the special ed COVID funds to ESSERS 1 to the governor's assistance to ESSERS 2 to FEMA, PCCD, pre-K, all those grants are listed on the left. The amount in which we're being awarded is in the next column. When those grants were opened and started for us to start spending money. Next column is when we have to have all those funds for that particular grant expended. And the next gives you an idea of what we've tagged for the purchase of those funds. So let's give you an example. So the special ed COVID-19 funds, you can see we designated those funds to the Chromebooks. So recall through this whole process, we equipped everyone with a Chromebook. So we tagged those funds for that. ESSER 1, you can see that we used for salaries, benefits for cleaners, our IT, cleaning items, cleaning equipment, our access points that we have on the exterior of the building, also additional Chromebooks, our network switches. The next, the GER Chromebooks were also purchased with that funding. FEMA, so you get the idea of the things that were spent. So take a look beyond the purchase descriptions. Those are the years in which we received those funds. So let me go back over to the second column, go clear to the bottom. You will see what at the end of all this will be the funds that's come in supporting all the COVID funds that we're getting. So you can see there's 4.1 million. So let's go back over to the years amount to be used in each fiscal year. You can see when they're used. So everything, all the grants from the special ed COVID-19 down to the pre-K ESSERs, those were basically funds that honestly did not have a lot of criteria to them, meaning that whatever it took to get through those that year or that month to spend on funds. Fortunately, you all know we were a school district to be that was in session and we're here. So we didn't face a lot of things that other districts did. So you will see in those purchase columns, absolutely, we've used those funds to pay for things that usually we have paid for in our general fund. So that's why you'll see purchases column, everything from the special ed, COVID-19, the pre-K ESSERs. You will recognize about everything there that typically that was spent in our general fund. So that will help offset funds as we go through the next couple of years. So those are the years in which we predict we'll spend those. Now go clear out to the second to the left, there's second column to the right, the second to the last one. Those are the payments in which we received of what we're supposed to get. Then you will also see the very last column is still what we will be owed from each one of them. With that said, the last two that says ESSER 3 and ESSER 7% set aside, notice the purchase column. So more criteria was added that we have to fit. So all the grants above that, you will see that we used for a lot of situations where you'll normally see in our budget. Starting the last two, when criteria that we had to meet when it comes to meeting emotional support needs, learning loss, those types of things are all listed there. So those are running our summer programs. Those are running our paying for our behavioral consultant, which in the past we pulled down access funds to pay for our behavioral consultant. So you will see that we have not sent in the last grant submission yet, which will be due at the end of the month. So again, the last two funding sources out of all of this funding, more criteria was put in place that we have to write narratives to, that we have to plan, we have to show how we're going to assess student academic achievement, how we are going to help remediate, how we're going to meet emotional support needs, things of that sort. So again, looking at the bottom column, the second column on the spreadsheet tells you the total amount. You'll go clear to the right. Those are still funds that will still be coming to the district anywhere from this year to the year 23-24. Okay. That makes sense. I know it's a lot at you, but I want to just show you. Nicole did the summary for all of us, and it does. It gets very complex because it's going to blend in some of these fiscal years, so it's sort of difficult. But she clearly has indicated there the funds that are coming in, what they're spent, how much is still coming through, that type of thing.
So the $200,000 that Josh used for this year's budget is kind of like washed into all this stuff,
Right.
correct? Okay. So it would be safe to say that when this is all over, we'll still be spending money on some of this stuff.
Some of it, but for the next few years, you're going to have that influx of that money coming.
Correct.
Where we're offsetting normal things and you're going to have excess. So in executive session, I'm going to show you some things you're going to make a decision on.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah,
Sure.
One other question.
Yep.
You know, I saw in the news that they were talking about that, and I'm sure since we really didn't have anybody, now we were open for most of the time, but I saw in the news that it's like a nationwide thing that a lot of the students are falling behind because of what it was. I know, real quick, I remember way back in the 70s when I went to school, they had a natural gas crisis. Hard to believe, but they were short. And where I went, Hempfield, they merged schools together so they could close schools. And we went like 3 hours a day. Then you brought all this homework home. But I remember it was a waste. You know, there's nothing is like coming to school and getting the discipline and being in school. You know. But anyway, having said that, the nationally they say that a lot of students are falling behind. Do we see that here at Penns Manor? Do we need to maybe have summer classes or something with this money?
And that's that's what Mrs. Zeglin had started this past summer, also helping out the seniors. So as we put the things together in the summer, so what Mrs. Zeglin put together this past summer will carry through for the next 3 summers at least. Mrs. Dolges addressed just the seniors this past year. However, since we have the funds coming in, we're going to open that up all to the secondary.
The
So as we
credit
do the
recovery?
renovation. Yep. We have it. I will tell you this. I don't see, and they can chime in. I'm not sure that we've seen so much academic lacks, but I'm going to tell you, I probably, and not so much at the elementary, but Mrs. Eglin may say, well, Mr. Johnson, you just don't know. Behavior and emotional support at our high school is the most needy it has ever been since I've been here. I mean, it's just, it's unreal. I don't know how else to explain it.
Okay.
And I think it's a lot of not being out. And now that we're out, and for some reason we're in a society all of a sudden, or at least the environment is, if I feel like it, I'm going to do it. If I feel like I want to say it, I'm going to say it. And I will just say, it just has not been that way in the past, and it is now that way. And any of them can chime in if they.
Well, I'm just
Disagree.
thinking that we're getting these extra funds, and this is a different kind. It's something we've never experienced before. Maybe we should allocate some of these funds for some kind of emotional support.
Yep,
Thing.
and we do.
Okay.
So we will continue as we indicated there. In the past couple of years, when we added the behavior consultant and the behavioral therapist, if you recall, we used access funds to pull down out of an account to pay for them. So now over the next 3 years, we'll be putting that in ESSER 3. The other thing is that administration is also are looking at an assessment for emotional needs. We're using PASS. Also, and we'll probably get Mr. Grimaldi to talk about the paths in curriculum coming up in the next couple months that we're also purchasing. So when we identify needs, then now we're going to have to, key is, if you're going to identify them, you've got to do something. So with the paths and continuing behavioral consultant therapist, I feel that we're moving in the direction to address that.
And I would also hope too that after this crisis is over and the money quits coming in, then we have to think about getting rid of the
Sure.
programs. You know, we can't
Sure.
have programs stay, if we don't have the money to support them.
Absolutely.
All right.
Can I
Thank you.
chime in, Mr. Johnston?
Sure. Absolutely.
I agree 100%. The social emotional learning is the biggest gap. A lot of people want to talk about the academic gap, but I 100% agree. The bigger gap is social emotional. A lot of trauma, pre-COVID, trauma during COVID for students. And you're right. I think if it's on their mind and they're thinking it, they just do it. One of the things we can use the ESSER's money for, though, Ron, is that, like I know at Homer Center, we bought into the PASS, which is a social emotional learning product. basically what it does is we can survey all students. And what I like about it, it's for grades K through 12. And then what it does is we take those surveys from students, and then we can look at that data, and then they give you about 150 different interventions that you can use through this program and to help students based on obviously a large variety of needs. One of the things that I think we should use that ESSERS money for is to purchase that program. You can do that. You can get up to 5 years. So that is not a reoccurring cost. That gives the district plenty of time to determine the value that would bring to the district without having to absorb that within your budget. Then I agree with you, at the end of the 5 years, it's kind of the question you asked when I interviewed for the board. You know, how do you determine between raising taxes and cutting programs? I think then we have adequate data to determine if that's a program worth keeping. And, you know, so I strongly believe, I think one of the ways we can use that ESSERS money is, I don't know how long our contract is for PASS, but I would advocate for that we look to extend that with the other ESSERS monies that we have available and do that for at least a 5-year period. And I still feel the same, and I'm sure Mr. Johnson, you'll talk about it later. Another thing I talked about was the Ed Insight with the data collection, and I know that we're planning on getting together soon to do like to kind of have a presentation on what that looks like and how that could maybe assist. But that's also another way I think that we could use ESSERS money to do things that maybe we just don't have the budget capacity to do. And I do agree, though, we got to figure out too, you know, you want to be able to sustain it. You know, if you do that, at some point you're going to have to choose which programs are the most valuable versus those programs that might make us feel good but don't bring us as much value.
See, that's exactly what I don't want us to do, is get into a program where you run out of money before the program's over. And then you have to do something like you talked about, raising taxes.
Right.
You're getting the money now to deal with the crisis now. You use the money for now. And then that way, when it runs out, the program's over and you're not stuck with a legacy program, then you have to maybe cut other programs to sustain.
I think it does give you an opportunity to investigate programs that maybe can take us a step further than we already are. And then, like you said, at some point, something's going to have to give because we can't fund it all. But I think then I think the biggest thing I believe in is we've got to have a data collection site, a way to then be able to make these informed decisions. You know, how do we know students are growing? How do we know they're achieving? How do we know the longitudinal information? Michelle talked about all the discipline that she's dealing with. You know, how difficult is it for her to pull up all that information to see the longitudinal situation of student behaviors? That's why a data warehouse is important, because then you can make those decisions. Okay, if you have to choose between program A, B, and C, which program is having the most positive impact on our students in our school?
And to answer your question, Mr. Rainey, yes, we did sign a 5-year agreement. Since the money is here through the ESSERS to support that, that would run for 5 years. Other questions, comments?
So would we save some of this money then to pay for it on the year?
Yes.
It looks like there's only 3 years here.
Yep, but I'll show you
Okay.
here in executive session some ideas.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Okay, next, moving along, buildings and grounds. Did speak with Mr. Safran, also talked with Soil Conservation Office, that there aren't any stipulations for us to move forward with selling the piled topsoil that we have. So Mr. Safran and I will be drafting an advertisement. I'll also communicate with Buildings and Grounds and Mr. Dalton, just see the time of the year. Because we certainly wouldn't want to pick the time of the year where everything's soft and we have ruts going everywhere. So we will be moving forward to write that. We'll pick a time for it. Just be thinking, those of you that's on Buildings and Grounds, and I didn't share this with Mr. Dalton either, but Mr. Safran suggests that we identify either a triaxle load or all of it, because you can't, how else are you going to allow people to bid on it? So we're gonna have to set, he felt no more than 2 criteria as to how they would bid on that. So I will have discussion with buildings and grounds for 2 reasons. One, again, how will we, what are the 2 measurements that we're going to sell, or what bids submitted on, is submitted for, and then also time of year that we want to do that. So, but we will work on the advertising. Questions on that?
Well, the advertising spell out who loads it.
Well, that's what we have to put in it.
Yeah.
We don't have the equipment, so
Right. So
people's
we
gonna
don't
have
want
to
to have
come
to say, okay, I'm here, put it on. Okay.
otherwise we're paying for a company and saying at a designated time,
Yeah,
we're paying for the company to do it. Yeah. So it would be in the advertisements. You'd have to obtain it, unload it.
How much are we talking?
I think there's what, 50 loads down there?
I'm gonna say between 30 and 50 loads,
Of topsoil?
topsoil, yes.
And what do we think we can get for,
It needs to be screened in.
we won't screen it.
Drainage from the field that's in it, there are some stones, there's been a lot of large weeds and that growing on top of it now, so it'd be unscreened topsoil, which I'm not sure, I was gonna say probably $12 to $15 a ton.
And how many, say again, how much you think there?
I'm gonna say probably in excess of 30 tractor loads in that one area. That they can gather up.
So how, I guess I'm asking, just to ask, how much are we going to make?
about $9,000, right?
Yeah, it's about 700 tons.
Is it in the way?
No,
Will we ever need it?
we never need it. We don't need it at this time.
So is it just purely fundraising is what we're doing?
Or you just get rid of it.
Sort of like cut timber, selling topsoil.
Well, I guess, and this is just my opinion off the cuff, is that, okay, it's there. I'm just saying, after time, as much won't be there. So if we don't have a plan in the very near future to use it, we may as well.
And you also could spell in it, they have to seed
Oh,
where
yeah.
they take, where they cook it. And I guess 700 ton, it's over 10 grand, so that could pay for the guardrail.
There you go. Other questions about that one? Comments? Okay. Moving to athletics. A lot of these we'll talk about in executive session, because as I just want to share with you who applied and recommendations and interviews yet to be done. So that's the case for hiring a junior high girls basketball assistant coach 2 position, hiring a head softball coach, hiring softball assistant coach, and also hiring baseball assistant coach. 8E, you do have the letter of resignation from Miss Gillo as head varsity volleyball coach. So we'll accept that next week and then advertise for that position. Questions or comments under athletics? Okay, moving along, transportation. We do have a list of substitute drivers to approve. They're all listed there. So we'll have a motion next week for that. Public relations, policies and correspondence, have nothing listed under that for this evening. Going over to new business 13A, we ended today the time period for hiring a long-term special education teacher. If anyone can find one, if anyone can send one our direction, we do need one that would cover 2 months from December and January. So if you know of anyone, please tell us. Otherwise, we will be looking at one of our guest teachers again as a long-term sub. And just so you know, when we put people in those positions, I applied to PDE to get the emergency certification for that individual for that time period. Questions, comments? Next, 13B. Just want to share with you 2 pieces that's in the comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan is due at the end of the school year in June. Part of our pieces of that comprehensive plan includes other plans. First listed there in 13B is a special education plan. I was hoping that I would give that to you this evening, but I'll make sure that you get it, and then we will have you approve it in December. Special ed plan for phase 3, which is us. It's due in March. So we just ran into a little couple technical things within the system that we don't know why it's doing what it's doing. So I didn't want to print something out that was incorrect. And what I mean by that, and you may say, well, that doesn't mean anything to me, but percentage the teachers spend time with certain groups of students, that actual portion is not working well for us in the system. So I didn't want to print something out that wasn't correct. So as soon as we get that fixed, we will share that with all of you. Again, it must be done by March. We want to get it done and in front of you to have it approved, probably at December board meeting, because we want all that done and nicely ready when we get our monitoring or / audit done in February. Questions on that? Next, also part of the comprehensive plan is Chapter 16, which is approved gifted. So in online and or in front of you is a Chapter 16 handout. Basically, for gifted in the portion in the comprehensive plan, it's just basically questions and sections. For example, they want to know where do we publicize that we have gifted services, gifted programs, just so that you know. We always do a yearly advertisement in the Gazette. We also put it into publications of the student handbooks on the website. Other things that it talks about or questions us is how do we determine if someone's gifted? Right out of the bat, people think that right out of the box, so to speak, people think it goes just basically on IQ. We're giving you the explanation and an understanding that no, we use a multiple approach. We do not just use IQ to determine if someone's gifted. Other things that are listed or asked on that is just talking about, well, what are the things that we do enrichment wise, acceleration wise for students that are gifted. So you're all very well aware of the things that we do. Everywhere from dual enrollment, we'll accelerate individuals in the past by grade, we'll accelerate in an academic subject. All those types of things we will do for a gifted student. So please take a look at that. We won't have a specific motion just for that, but I just want to start showing you pieces of what will be in our comprehensive plan that we will approve by June. Questions on 13B or C? Next, business manager. Just to remind everyone that we're accepting applications for our business manager till 3 p.m. on November 10th. And in executive session this evening, I'll share with you individuals that have applied so far for that position. Questions? Next, 13E, approve FMLA request. We have a faculty member that's requesting leave. I'll talk in more detail about that in executive session. 13F, approve an outside placement for a high school student. We do have a student that's transferred to us from another school district. That individual is behind, has missed a lot of school and is behind a couple grades. So we want to actually enroll that student in the YES program at Adelphi in Indiana. And just to remind you, the YES program is designed that a student can progress at the rate to get the academics completed so that if they can keep up with that pace and complete those courses, that we could probably try to get 2 years done in one. So we would like to have your permission to place that student in the YES program at Adelphi. Questions, if you want details, we can talk about the executive session, but that's the general. Then last, under new business, to approve advanced placement for Ms. Smego on the pay scale. She'll be moving from bachelor's plus 20 to master's. Questions for open session? Okay. That concludes open committee meeting. We do have an executive session this evening. We will not come out of that executive session with any type of business. So that concludes the open session for this evening. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.